Hello again, Diggerland, and our leaders and members who are watching, I hope. And this is session 3, and we're working our way through some information around suicide awareness. And I've been throwing information out, and there's been a lot of stuff. So if you feel you have any questions or whatever, please feel free to approach me, and I'm happy to always talk about it. So we're going to do session 3 today, and as always, I'm going to begin with the scripture reading. And my scripture reading is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 13, and it starts at verse 10. And it's about the healing of a woman on the Sabbath. And one Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in a Jewish meeting place, and a woman was there who had been crippled by an evil spirit for 18 years. She was completely bent over and couldn't straighten up. When Jesus saw the woman, he called her over and said, "You are now well." He placed his hands on her, and at once she stood up straight and praised God. The man in charge of the meeting place was angry because Jesus had healed someone on the Sabbath. So he said to the people, "Each week has 6 days when we can work. Come and be healed on one of those days, but not on the Sabbath." The Lord replied, "Are you trying to fool someone? Won't any one of you untie your bullock or donkey and lead it out to drink on a Sabbath? This woman belongs to the family of Abraham. But Satan has kept her bound for 18 years. Isn't it right to set her free on the Sabbath?" Jesus' words made his enemies ashamed, but everyone else in the crowd was happy about the wonderful things that he was doing. The story really is in simple terms. Jesus saw a woman who was in great need. But see, everybody else it was obvious to them. But Jesus was the one who approached her. Jesus was the one who actually spoke to her. He could see her pain. He could empathize with her pain, just like everybody else. But the thing was that Jesus approached her. And so my hope is that if we're around people and they're not traveling well, that we can see that we can empathize with that. And we can also approach those who need a word in season, and that we can come beside them as part of the body of Christ. And so moving into part 3, I ended last week with the 5 major challenges to helping the suicidal person. They are 1, uncertainty, fear and anxiety. 2 is conflicting agendas of the clinician and client, or yourself and the client. The risk of harm due to coercion and control. Helplessness and the urge to rescue. And 5, contagious hopelessness. Okay, so let's go to it. Challenge number 1, uncertainty and interrogation. What if the person is hiding suicidal intent? We said last session that quite often people do give information. They do give hints, and it's only that we aren't always aware, that we're not always taking on board. We can hear people, but or we can listen to people, but we don't always hear what they've got to say. And the thing is, sometimes when we put things together, there's a sequence, there's a line that connects, and people have been giving us those hints. They've been giving us that information around their suicidal intent. So, people can hide it, yes, but quite often people don't. What if I miss something important? Okay, that can happen, and it does happen. But the thing is that, when we're working with somebody, we're connected to somebody, we're listening to somebody, we can only do what we can do at the time, And I'm a professional person. I work in this field. But the thing is that, we don't always get it right, So the thing is, we may miss something important. But the thing is, if we're there, there's a chance that we won't. So what if the person dies and it's my fault? Well, let me just say one thing. It's not. It's not your fault. If somebody follows through and they complete suicide, the thing is that people say, oh, well, that's their choice or whatever. No, okay, I'm not going to go into that. But the thing is that, if a person dies by their own hand, it is not our fault. It is not my fault. We carry that a bit, yeah. But the reality is that it is not my fault if it happens, or yours if it happens. So, got a couple of examples that I want to just sort of go through very, very briefly. These are real cases. The case of Tom. Tom was a 20-year-old junior business major at a university. He was chronically suicidal, but no attempts. See, chronically suicidal, but no attempts. Okay, so the thing is, see, people think once people are chronic that that's it. No. We can connect with people. We can work with people and walk beside them if they have suicide ideation, the thoughts of suicide. He had 22 sessions of CAMS, which is a collaborative working thing with people with suicide. So working with them. The drivers for him were career stress and family. They were the things that were actually driving his suicide ideation. One of the others was a sudden drop out of treatment. Okay? And his psychologist called him twice and emailed him twice and documented the effort to re-engage him. But he got no response from Tom. Okay? So the postscript of Tom is that 6 weeks later, Tom ended his life. Following Tom's death, his mother demanded an appointment with the worker. Arrived with an attorney to review Tom's medical record. The attorney told the mother, after reviewing the record, that we have no case. The attorney, through a thorough suicide risk assessment, suicide-specific treatment, the son was not in imminent danger at the time when he stopped coming to sessions. And he refused to reconnect or reschedule appointments. So Tom chose to not reconnect. So the mother then hired 3 more attorneys to challenge this. But in the end, they all came to the same conclusion, and no litigation was ever pursued. And look, when we look at Tom's mum, who can blame her? She'd lost a loved one, a son, and she was angry, and she was pursuing it. And there were a lot of things that she needed to work through. And so we might say, oh, she's overboard or whatever. But see, we need to recognise that in her grief, she's looking for answers. She'd lost a son. But see, the person who was working with Tom, had done what he needed to do, from a legal perspective. The thing is that he followed up that, but he documented that and kept a record of that, And so the thing was that when the investigation came, that person wasn't held responsible. But I tell you, as a clinician who's lost patients to suicide, you don't just get over it. No. The case of Megan. Megan was a research scientist, so she was a very smart woman. Depressed, and she sought treatment. She had 6 sessions of CAMS, which is again the collaborative, framework that work with people with suicide. She engaged in a first session of CAMS. So her history was that she had 2 attempts, and she had passive ideation. Passive, so it wasn't, all the time ruminating. Excuse me. The CAMS session stuff had been filled out, and in the section B of the CAMS, it said that she denied that she had any plan, and that was documented by the worker with the client. And when we do this, the worker and the client actually sign the bottom of it on the day that we actually make the plan. And so there was research on gun ranges. She had done some research on it, and she was very, very depressed. Okay. The postscript of Megan. Megan shot herself on June the 19th, 2017. Therapist was consulted with an expert CAMS clinician. The therapist was found to be adherent to the CAMS model and working model with the client. 6 months later, Megan's parents called the therapist. Megan had purchased a gun prior to treatment. Megan was afraid of another hospitalisation. You see, this is one of those underlying things that, sometimes doesn't come out. People don't want to go into hospital, so they may not reveal all the information that they need because hospitalisation, is not a great place to be. So the clinician reassured and comforted the parents, and remarkably, the parents reassured and they comforted the clinician at the time. Because they knew that Megan had, although she was seeking help, Megan had a plan and she followed through on that. And as sad as that is, that another person died, but this person was being helped. Sounds awful when we talk about it. That these things happen, but see, there are many people that are engaging with therapists and ordinary people who don't complete suicide, who find that they can actually have reasons to live and they can actually move through that. You see, that's the thing. We tell the stories about those who die because it's that thing where that's what we're trying to prevent. So when we're working with somebody, our goal is for this not to be another one of those stories. Challenge number 2, different agendas. The suicidal person wants to stop suffering. I sat with somebody during the week and that was all they want. They want the pain to stop. That's it. They want the suffering to stop. In reality, they choose that they may want to die. But the cause is they want the pain to stop, and we can work with that. And you want the suicidal person to stay alive. And that's the thing. When we're connecting with someone who's depressed and anxious and even doing some self-harm, we talk about, what are those reasons? What are those things in their life for them to stay alive? I talked with another guy a few weeks ago, and his reason is, his daughter. He's only got one daughter, and that's it. And see, that's such a powerful thing. He's not worried about himself, but see, his reason to live is her, and so that's the thing that I'm working through with this person. Challenge 3, coercion and control. I have a contract for you to sign. We can say with people, promising that you won't do anything to harm or kill yourself. This was a practice that people used, years ago. They would get them to sign a contract, but people could sign a contract and go home and actually, complete suicide. People will sign or do whatever they want sometimes with you so that they can actually go home and actually complete what they're doing. And I guess the thing is that, if we're focusing on reasons to live rather than, doing all this other stuff, the thing is we increase that awareness in the person about those reasons to live. When we're doing contracts and all that, it becomes paperwork and all that. People don't want to do that. But see, when we talk about, their young child, and we talk about the things that they do with the child, and we talk about future of the child, we talk about walking down the aisle with the child. These are the things that we can supplant in a person's mind for them to have those reasons to live. I won't work with you if you attempt suicide, the clinician might say. Well, I hope I never say that because, I know why a person's wanting to get away. And my goal is that I will never stop wanting to work with somebody. So, and underneath it all, the issue of involuntary hospitalisation. People are worried if they engage with you and they don't do what you want them to say that, you'll contact the ward and the ward will then have them admitted, or they'll ring the police and there'll be a Section 351 and they'll be brought in and they'll be put into the ward. We don't want that. No. We want to be able to sit with the person and allow them to be a part of the process of, setting a plan in place about the things that they can do to stay alive. That's the goal. We don't want to coerce, because it's not about us getting the right answers. It's about, the person being able to feel comfortable about you staying alive a little bit longer. The helplessness and the urge to rescue. You see, the client, is feeling helpless. Yeah, of course they are, because they've arrived in a situation where they don't feel they have any personal control. But on the other hand, we can be the person who wants to fix it. We want to fix everything. Stop. Work on what's important now. Talk about now. Talk about reasons to live. And talk about those things that are important now. Remember I've said before, when a person I read about a while ago who, one of the reasons he had to live was to watch the end of the Breaking Bad series. If it works, it works. Hey, we wanting to give advice. We don't need to give advice. We need to empathise. We need to find out, from the person, what are those things that are underlying. I sat with a person a while ago who said that they were terrible, they hated themselves, and using a lot of language around that, all that sort of stuff, And I could advise them, say, but you've got all this. No, the questions that I'm going to ask that person is, knowing that he's got family, tell me about your daughter. Tell me about your extended family. Tell me about your relationships. Those sorts of things that are important to him, and actually engage them. Stop advising, and listen. Persuade or rescue. We don't want to persuade or rescue people. What we want to do is implement a strategy that that we know that the person has something that they can actually hold on to. Remember, if a person has arrived at a place where they want to die, there needs to be something of value for them to actually change that. And it may not be forever, but if we can find that and find those reasons, and we can talk about those, and we can actually change from here to die, this is to live, we can actually move the needle back. Might not go all the way, but we can lift the needle back from wanting to die to here. We've got a space to work with, and that's what we're after, okay? Then we get other people involved. Challenge 5, contagious hopelessness. Quote here says, the ongoing experience of bearing a person's intense despair and hopelessness is extraordinarily difficult and can erode one's sense of hope. Quite often, at work, I set appointments, and other people I work with, we set appointments for an hour. I don't think that I've had an appointment that's gone an hour. I think maybe the minimum is an hour and a half. I sat with someone yesterday for over 2 hours just talking to them. Because again, I'm not going to wrap it up and say, look, it's smoko now, I'll go and have a cup of tea and I'll catch up with you later. No, it's just sitting there, making yourself available. Because see, this person feels hopeless. You sit with them and you stay with them. You give them that sense that that there's something in them that that is important, that you care about, because they don't care about themselves. So we sit with them and we show them by being there that we care about them. So we're working against that hopelessness. Some antidotes, maybe. So, some techniques in the narrative approach. We can explore the person's agenda, and we can be collaborative as possible, because it's about working with the person. It's not about getting a contract, getting them to sign it, to agree to something. It's about collaboration, okay? We need to join the person in the darkness, and we need to rebuild hope and find reasons for living. Okay, normalisation. These are some of the techniques. Normalisation, shame attenuation. I'll talk about that. Gentle assumption and symptom amplification. Sounds a bit technical. Okay, so the narrative approach. You might say to the person, could you tell me how you got to the point that you wanted to put an end to your life? Maybe that wording's not quite right, but again, the thing is, ask the person, how did you get here? To decide that you want to die. What's been the journey? I would like you to tell me the story of what led to the suicidal crisis, and just let me listen to you. What was the crisis that led to this? See, again, if we just focus on the wanting to die, but if we focus on the crisis and we can work on the crisis, we can remove the crisis, we can remove the intent to die. So again, it sounds like splitting, but it's not. It's focusing on what's important. I may have said before, but we have an incident happens with a young person, and their feelings are they get angry, and their emotions are they get churned up inside, and then they punch somebody. And everybody focuses on the punch. The punch is not important. That's going to happen anyway because of these things. But see, if we work on the feelings and the emotions, and we work on what's actually going on at the time, we reduce the risk of the punch. We can reduce the risk of suicide by working on the crisis. What are the feelings and emotions that the person's actually having at the time? And let's start to identify those, and let's reduce those. So, that we can reduce the intent of dying. You could say, I would like you to tell me in your own words how it came about that you attempted suicide. It's a bit wordy, but you might say to the person, you talking to somebody during the week, you were brought in a couple of days ago and you tried to kill yourself. What was going on? It can be as bland as that. Get the person to talk to you. Start to listen to the person. Start to build that rapport. Rebuild that connection. Listen to the person, because maybe they feel people don't listen. And see, with the suicide prevention service that I work in, that's what our clients say to us. You don't tell me what to do. You listen to me. See, that's so powerful. You sit there and listen. I was talking to a man yesterday, and he was crying, telling me his story, and I'm crying with him, because it was sad, and I'm feeling a bit emotional now. I'm crying with him because it was, and he looked at me and he saw that I identified, and that's a powerful thing, As two blokes to be able to just cry, and it's okay, yeah. Explore the person's agenda. How much do you want to stop thinking of suicide, if at all? Sounds a bit, weird. Do you want to stop thinking about it? Yeah. See, people, have suicide ideation, and like I've said before, we can work with that, and people go through that for many, many years. But the thing is, people can, this sounds weird, can get used to that. I have these thoughts, but it doesn't bother me anymore. But you might say, do you want to stop thinking about suicide? And they can look at you and say, yeah. They never thought about it because it's just something that they're used to. What are the pros and cons of keeping suicide open as an option? You may not agree with that, but see, for this person, if we start to back a person in a corner, they can shut down. And so for them, having suicide as an option, at the bottom, not number one or number two, but down here, And so again, but see, what we're doing is we want to replace suicide as option 1 or 2 with option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 about living. We want to reduce the option of suicide. And so again, for them, and this sounds weird, for a person who has this way of thinking, for them to die is to escape. And so to remove that option puts them in a place where they are just not sure. So we just reduce it and we move it away. Don't focus on the intent to die as such. Focus on the reasons to live. Be curious, not judgmental. And see, again, a person can tell you something and internally you can go, but you don't have to show that on the outside. Sometimes people can tell you all sorts of things when you start to listen. And sometimes they tell you things and you wish they didn't tell you. But again, there's no judgment. Because, see, we aren't where that person is. We don't feel how that person feels right now. And so again, that is where the person is. Be curious. Oh, you feel like that? That must be awful. How long have you felt like that? Tell me about that. What led to this feeling? Be curious. Ask open-ended questions. Don't ask questions that are yes or no. Open-ended questions. How long have you felt like that? When did that start for you? Start to be curious. Open-ended questions. Be collaborative. And again, as I spoke about before, avoid no suicide contracts or ultimatums or unnecessary emergency room or hospitalisation referrals. See, unnecessary. Avoid them. Because the thing is that, if a person feels trapped and we're removing any sense of, them, having that freedom, out there, they're going to be locked up, and people may think they go in and they're going to be anaesthetised. They might be put in a room on their own, whatever. People can shut down. We don't want that. Collaborative is collaboration with the person. Sitting beside them. When we use the CAMS model, it's very formulaic. It goes through different steps, and if you want to, I can talk to you about that. And even give you some of the forms to look at, to know what to look for. And the thing is that, we talk about the reasons that have happened in their life. And then second part, section B, what are the reasons for you to live? And see, we sit beside the person when we do it. They tell us and we write it down in their words. And some of those words may be flowery. But see, we can't afford to be offended. Because this person, it's not about their vocabulary. It's about them sharing their thoughts, their pain, their needs with us. And so we don't have to write the words down they say, but we need to write down the content of what they say. And it may not sound nice, but we need to use their wording because we're collaborating with them. Remember, non-judgmental. Okay, use a safety plan with mutual goals. You can go online and there's suicidsafetyplan.com. You can grab that. We do have some information here that you can actually get and work with, and but also, you might just write things down. What are the things that this person can do that actually can be safe? Who are the people you can be around? What are the things that we need to remove from your home to make you safe? Guns, knives, ropes, all that sort of stuff. So identify a common goal to work toward. Quite often people have been estranged from family, and a goal can be that they want to be reconciled. So that can be a goal that we work with, because that's a part of their reason to live. So we begin the process of doing that if we can, and we can work on, if necessary, do some mediation with the family, because, the family have probably been through the ringer over many years perhaps. It's easy for us to be judgmental about the family when they say they cut the person off. But we need to think that maybe they've had 10 or 15 years of a person being unwell. And that's hard. That's really, really hard. But we can step in. What's a goal that they can work towards? Shame attenuation. It's a word that a lot of people don't hear much about, but I'm going to going to tell you what it means right now. So many people who want to die by suicide feel ashamed of such desires. So they may have grown up with religious teachings, okay, that said suicide is a sin. Okay, remember years ago, that's the way people thought. And suicide was illegal years ago. Well, commit suicide. Okay. Or maybe they believe that people who think of suicide are selfish or weak. Maybe they fear that thinking of suicide means they are defective or crazy. Shame attenuation may help people feel less condemning of themselves and of their suicidal thoughts. This technique is similar to normalization, only that you convey that the client's situation itself makes it understandable that suicide might be considered as an option. See, the situation the person finds themselves in, let's just say they're a believer and they go to church and that they find themselves in this situation that they want to die, they want to kill themselves. And then there's the shame that goes with it, Like I'm a believer and I go to church and I worship and all this sort of stuff. What will people think about me? And that shame comes, that guilt comes. And see, all that shame and guilt does, it actually moves us away. And so if we can get beside a person and try and understand the situation and say, well, maybe I can see why that led to you thinking that. Thinking that over a long period of time has led you to be at this place where you think dying is the only way out. Because the thing is, as a person, focuses on the situation that they can't control, all the things that they know that are helpful continue to get flitted away, and in the end there's only one option left, and that's I need to get away, I need to die for this pain to stop. So this does not mean that you condone suicide as an option, no, only that you can see how it makes sense to the client. It makes sense to them, not to me, not to you, but to them. We need to put ourselves in their shoes. Okay. I can see how you may feel that's your only option. So you're not agreeing, but you can see how that may be. Okay. Example, you've described an enormous amount of painful problems that you were going through. You could say this to the person. With all the pain that you feel, have you ever wished that you were dead? And you might say, following up, do you ever think of killing yourself? We need to ask the question. Don't just think about it. Ask the question. Find out. Don't let your worry get in the way. Ask the question with the person because they will probably tell you. Absolutely. Okay. Moving back. Next slide. Join in the darkness. Listen and hear. We need to go to that spot where that person is. And it can be a real dark place. Sat with a young person about 24 years old a few weeks ago, and the way that they were describing how they felt, wow, it was so dark. And the voices in their head that they were listening to, that they could hear, telling them that they're rubbish, that they're no good, you need to die. The only way to stop this is for you to die. This is a dark place. But that was a couple of weeks ago. That person today is in a better place. You see, we can work with people. And we have doctors and psychiatrists that I work with every day. And people, more often than not, may need medication. And that's okay. Nobody's happy about medication, but the thing is, it may be necessary. Okay. We need to rebuild hope and reasons for living. Make suicidality the focus. Okay? Suicidality, don't dance around it. Use the word. You're wanting to suicide. You're wanting to die. Okay? Put it out there. All right. Involve loved ones if possible. Have family involved. All these other people. If necessary, partners, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Alleviate the psychological pain. If there are things that have been there that are worrying the person. Talk to them about that sort of stuff. Allow them to alleviate that. Target social isolation. Don't allow the person to shut themselves away. Work with them. Invite them to things. Go around there. Have coffee with them. Teach grounding exercises. Imagery meditation, mindfulness, all this sort of stuff. It's such a wonderful thing. I love it. If you want some of that stuff, ask me and I'll give you some information and start to practice it yourself. I do this all the time. Do mindfulness. I do imagery meditation because it works, guys. It works. Nourish future plans and goals. Okay. Explore reasons for living. Good idea. Incorporate a hope kit. What are the things that we can, hope for? Being back with family, back to work, back to sport, all these things. They're the things that the hope kit, they're the things that we're aiming for. Let's have those goals that we can work on. Help challenge negative thoughts, challenge negative thoughts. If you think that, what might happen? What's the worst that can happen? Well, probably, this might happen. What's the best that can happen? What most likely will happen? Challenge it. Elicit coping statements. Talk about coping things. I'll talk to people about how, when I'm having some ruminating thought, the things that I do to cope. I do stuff. I listen to books. When I'm in bed at night, I put a book on. I bought a new book a while ago, put my earphones in, hopped into bed, woke up in chapter 11. Must have been a good book. But see, it worked. I was able to go to sleep. Foster acceptance of thoughts. A person may be struggling with that, thinking, well, I must be crazy that I'm thinking about suicide. I must be crazy. I'm thinking about dying. No. It's okay. This situation you find yourself in has led you to that. And it's okay. Let's hold that. Let's accept that. And now, if we can accept that, we can actually work with it. Enhance coping skills. And there are things that we can do, guys. I've got lots of information if you want it. Okay, so I am going to finish there. And I hope that, again, this session has given you a lot more information. And, we're up session 3. We got 1 to go. If you want any information, if you want to clear up something or whatever, please ask me. Okay, I'm happy to talk. Bless you, guys.